are live, question mark? We'll find out in just a second. Scoot the mic over so it's a little bit closer to me. Hello, welcome, good morning, it's my morning. Welcome to live coding. Ooh, peaky. Too loud in the audio. There we go. Yeah, we're good. Hi, howdy, welcome to today. I have a confession to make. Enrique says, bad pupil here? I mean, I don't think anybody's a bad pupil. Well, I think people who genuinely don't want to learn something probably should not be forced to learn it. Well, is that true? I don't know. I don't know that I have any thoughts on that. Hi. I'm feeling higher energy today, but also a little bit more, all over the place, so it'll be a fun stream. Today, we are going to do two things, and I do have a confession to make, which is that I did already do one of them. So, one thing that we were starting with last Wednesday, hi Osvaldo, was getting our Docker container all set up, ready to go, and then I said, oh, we need to host this somewhere. I think I'm using Docker Hub. And this morning I was, double checking things to make sure that I had Docker installed and working correctly because it was a pain and I was running into a lot of bugs with Docker Desktop, which is how I interact with things locally. And listen, it's a long story, but the upshot is that I actually have already hosted our current image on Docker Hub. So it is under RC Tapman dialect quiz, and then the tag is broken because if you will remember, what is in our Docker image is our actions. And our actions file right now has two things. It has the form, so it answers questions, asks questions in order, and saves that information to slots. And the other thing that it has is our classifier, so it takes in all those slots, converts them to the encoding scheme that the classifier expects, runs the classifier, returns the results. Right now, the classifier always returns the same results. So every time we run it, we are getting the answer as if as if the quiz were empty, as if we hadn't answered any questions. And the form that's collecting the information and doing the validation seems to be doing an okay job. So the problem is somewhere else. But I did get my Docker image up and hosted. The next step would be to relaunch the what is it called? Relaunch the cluster that has our Rasa X instance running in it. So our Rasa X instance is up and running. And connect it to the action server. And we did that, actually did that part off screen, and there's a YouTube video for it that I can pull up really quickly. And show you what that looked like. And the video. All right, what if we go to YouTube first and then search for it there? That might be easier. So that's going to take not much time, but before we relaunch our Kubernetes cluster, I want it to do what I say it does, and this is probably going to be another one of those things where we spend like 2 seconds working on Rasa and it all works very good, and then a lot of time trying to find this gosh darn bug, and I don't remember what, I don't know where the bug is. Sorry, I'm on the Rasa YouTube channel to show you. You might have noticed we've done a lot of installation videos recently. So this is the installing Rasa X, Windows 10, and GCP Google Cloud Platform is the video that I put together that shows the process that I went through to launch this our Rasa X instance, and right now it doesn't have an action server, so when you talk to the assistant on Rasa X, you have the conversation, and then when it gets to the part where you actually take the quiz, it fills all the slots with none, because there's no backend to run the form, and then it says, you sound like you come from none. So that would mean, that output would mean that the classifier didn't run, and the slot value wasn't changed. And the slot value is being changed, but it is not the classifier isn't being applied correctly. So let's jump in a little bit and see if we can get to the bottom of this. Sorry, I know that was a lot of setup, but I always assume that every stream is going to be somebody's first. Coffee. So, what does our assistant do? So it has the conversation part, that's all handled on the Rasa server. We're just focusing on the action server now, which is what runs arbitrary code. And here are the things it do. So the form collects all of the answers and does some data validation. Question for myself. Am I doing the data validation correct? So one thing that could cause the problem that we have, where the classifier is running but the outputs it's giving is as if all of the answers were no, is if these the data validation that we're doing to match the input that the user gives to one of the answers for the multiple choice question is slightly off. So as I remember, no, model bits, yeah, here are our answers for data validation. And I'm pretty sure we went through and put them in our action folder. So let's check. Lawyer is either, other, law, and boy. Let's just quickly check that. Action server, right. So lawyer, which is the first one, is either, other, law, and boy. That looks right. Let's check highway. It should be in here somewhere. All right. So this we generated from the answers in the crawfish, gym shoes, pill bug, kitty corner. There we go. So this is the highway one. So this is the one we generated these answers from the ones. So the answers for the original quiz with the data was collected by, which is multiple choice. So a freeway has limited access, blah, 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 blah. A freeway is bigger than a highway. A freeway is free. A highway isn't. Expressway, freeway, highway, other. Okay, so freeway is limited access. Freeway is bigger. Freeway is free. Expressway, freeway, highway, other. Parkway, throughway, turnpike. Parkway, throughway, turnpike. Okay, so this is all looking the same. Okay, so I don't think that we made a problem here. Enrique says, last day I didn't get if the model predicts the answer before finishing to get all the quiz answers. So as far as I can tell, what's happening when we run through the assistant, the actions work, the action server is working because we're getting the form. The validation is working because we're getting the filled slots, because when you finish the quiz, all the filled slots are correctly read back to you, which is just part of the assistant. And then the from there, the filled slots are being mapped to questions here, and the thing that I am not certain is happening is this bit. I think I've narrowed down the answer to this. So we are collecting all the slot information. We are correctly saving the values to the slots. But what's happening then is at some point in this function, we take each of the answers and then we use that to create a one-hot encoding. And something goes wrong in there. And then the classifier is being run and none. And instead the slot is being set to the top 3 states if you have all zeros in your classifier, in your input data to the classifier. So it's somewhere in there. Hopefully that answers your question. This episode is going to be a lot of me just sort of like thinking real hard and trying to figure out what's going on. So let's go through this function sort of line by line and figure out what every line is doing. And I'm going to make this smaller and move me over a tiny bit. There we go. So everyone can see the code together. So stream is disconnected. Hopefully it should be reconnected now. Sorry about that. There is some network flakiness on my end, which I think is happening to a lot of people right now. Network flakiness going on. Yeah, sorry. It's not like I'm accidentally pausing the stream. It's just that some packets are being dropped, or enough packets that the stream stops. So, this isn't happening. If this were happening, as we fill out the quiz, once all our answers have been collected, we'd get a message that says working on it, and we're not getting that. Not entirely sure why. I'm not super worried about that. Avenue X says, is this pre-recorded? Nope. If it were pre-recorded, I'd probably figure out the bug ahead of time and then just be like, oh, here's the answer. Isn't programming easy? Okay. So I'm just gonna remove this because I don't think that we need that because we know that this function is being run. Okay. M2X, I really want to learn how to make my own AIs. I can't type. No worries. Typing is hard. Yeah, I don't know. AI is sort of at this point, not a very useful term, at least for me. But I'd say this contains multiple machine learning components, so. That is cold. Rachel, do you have 2 copies? No, I think I've almost finished this one. The one in the tumbler is hot. The one in the cup is not. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're getting the information from the form and formatting it from encoding. So we are loading in this database that maps the question number to the keys. So instead of saying beverage, we're saying Q105, which is what the classifier expects. And I can actually pull up an example here that I think will be a little bit more helpful. So the empty data structure. So this is what our our columns look like for the classifier. So underscore, lowercase q, and then the question, no leading zeros, and then an underscore, and then the name of the slot. Sorry, no, this isn't the name of the slot. This is the validated answer to the question. So for every question, there's multiple answers, and for every combination of question and answer, we create a new row. The reason that we're using this empty data structure is that it has all of the combinations of datas and rows that we see in the total data set. So it creates a very wide data structure, and then we do the same process to our input data, and then we match the input data columns to the ones existing in the data structure. And it looks like that step isn't happening. So if it were, we would expect some zeros and then some ones for the columns that exist in the data set. So that's a problem. So this is a database that we've gotten here that does the mapping. I think this is right. We went through it on Wednesday, and I don't think there's any errors in there. And then we create a series where the index is the keys of the question. So Q105, Q73, etc. And then for the index and value in these formatted responses, for every item, so there should be as many items as there are questions. For the formatted response at the given index, we set the value to be slot question key index. So we look up the slot name from the database that we read in earlier, and then we use the tracker, which is the SDK object that stores the history of the conversation, and we get the slot that has that name. And so we've gone through our series and done that for each of them. And then we do the get top 3 KNN, which is defined in a separate class. So the get top 3 KNN, we load in our empty data structure. Encode answers. Okay, oh, no, this isn't the data structure. This is the actual model. Okay, so I'm not worried about this. So encode answers. This is, I think, the place where it's most likely to be the problem. So we read in the empty data structure, and we drop the first 3 columns because that has leakage. It's like the user number, the user ID, and then the latitude and longitude that they're at, so we don't want that information. And then we do this alignment. So we have an existing empty data structure, and we do a left join. So we take the existing data structure, and this is where we match the data structure for just our answers. Let me go back to the project where we were actually building the classifier. My question, did I make changes? I don't remember. I'm going to say yes. My question is, when is it open in a tab? No. Model bit, sample pipeline, set level. When I did, oh, go away. When I did this, yes, please open the notebook. Please just open the notebook. So, building. Oh, this is the old classifier. Let's just look at just the sample pipeline. So this is a CSV at this point. Did I do any additional data cleaning? Or did I do any additional text manipulation to the text that becomes the column names? Let's see if that is a thing that I did. Pretty sure this is the notebook where we created the classifier that we're using here. Yep, no, this is the one. So what did I do? We didn't do reverse geocoding. Well, we did, but I ended up doing it using an online service that I paid for because it was really slow. Get dummies. Coded down. Don't think I did this. So this part says include this with participant responses. And what this is doing in the encoded data is replacing spaces and column names with underscores. Did I? Ooh, actually maybe I am doing this. I'm just gonna copy this just in case, and then I'm going to go and check my action server. Encoding sample, coded data, input data, encoded data, fill NA. Yeah, I don't think I am doing it, so let me add that and we'll see if it helps. So once we get the, okay, this is at this point it's a series with an index, so I want to convert that to, I think, coded data.columns. Actually, maybe I'm doing this in the classifier. Let me check that really quick. Here we are converting NAs to zeros. Fill NA will only do that to NAs, okay. And then here we have the encoded data. And I think it is actually probably at this point that we want to use our, to clean up our columns, right? One sec, let's go back. I'm gonna stick a pin in this. Does the column cleanup go here? I don't think it does because at this point we've already done the matching. So I think it needs to happen before that. Yes, save it. And not entirely sure why it didn't keep this open. Okay, so nope, this is the one I want. I don't want this one. I don't want this one. I don't want this one. I just want this one. Sorry, I did quite a few models. That error is supposed to be there. So get dummies. Include this with the participant responses. So, and then the clean data is happening. So when we extract the clean data, it's happening after we do this. So it needs to happen in the code where we combine the two data sets. Increase the volume. Oh, how's that? I get like a lot of comments that the volume is too quiet. Whenever I listen to it back, it seems to be fine to me. I don't know if there's something else going on there, but it should be a little bit louder now. I'm trying to avoid that thing where you get sort of like a weird robotic distorted sound, which is why I'm not pumping it all the way up. It will sound bad. So, yeah, I think this is what the problem is. In order to match the user response, we use the align function. So we create a data set of a single row and then delete it after the align and join. Yeah, and then we create this at this point. Yeah. Okay, so I'm pretty sure. Okay, I'm pretty sure what we need to do is, so we did some testing of the classifier in situ, and it worked there. And I think the problem that we had is that our test data was in a less raw format. So it was in the final encoded format with the correct headings. And we know that once we get to that point, then the classifier will work correctly. But currently it is not. So in here, what are we doing? So the align get dummies. Okay, so I think I need to break this out into a couple of things. Let me make this smaller. Encoded sample. So this is the sample data structure. Alright, so encoded data, it's the input data there. Encoded data. And here we'll use the encoded data instead of trying to do the dummies in place. So I think what's happening here is somebody's making a humming sound outside. So I think what's happening here is, I think what our problem was, and we'll run through the assistant and see if I was right on this. I think what our problem was when we wrote this function, we did the getting dummies, and then we didn't go through and replace the spaces in the column names with underscores because of the order of operations, and it worked in our testing because our testing data was not exactly analogous to the data coming out of the assistant. So I think this should work. Famous last words. And I'm actually going to change all of this to say encoded input data. I realize that column is, that row is very long. I'll run black on this and it'll fix that up. Is it spacing right on that? It is, okay. I thought it would be indented. All right, so I think this should work now. One hot encode input data and standardize column names. Okay. All right, let's give this a shot. So to use our assistant, I'm going to pop this open again so that I can not being directly in front of the place where we talked to it. So the first thing we want to do is run our action server. So this creates a server that runs this is basically what's in our Docker that we uploaded to Docker Hub, or I uploaded to Docker Hub secretly beforehand. All right, that's going. Actually, you know what? No, I want to do that, but I want to do it with logging. Rasa run actions, and it is VV for very verbose. So now as it's running, we'll get a lot of information back about what's happening. And then now that our action server is running, we can talk to Rasa in the shell. And I'm also going to turn on logging here, but not quite as extensively. All right. So now we'll talk to our assistant, and hopefully we'll get reasonable answers out and not, what's the answer that we've been getting out? The answer we've been getting out is that the top 3 states are Michigan, Washington, and Alabama, or Massachusetts, Washington, and Alabama, which from a dialectology perspective is wild. So Washington is in the far northwest corner of the United States. Alabama is on the southeast side of the United States, and then Michigan is sort of like in the middle north of the United States. So they're extremely far apart from each other. They're all in different dialect areas. You would not expect them to be clustered together. All right, let's get started. Hi. Enrique says cross fingers. Yeah, me too. Let's do it. Let's see if this actually identifies that that's agreement. Hey, it worked. I'd call that a roly-poly. So I'm just answering this as if I were taking the quiz, and I know what my dialect area is and what I expect some states to be, and we'll see if it happens. Soda. And the lag here, so this is much faster on Mac and Linux, but it's when you're using Rasa Shell on Windows, there's a little lag because of the way that localhost is handled. And there's a way to get around it, and I just like a lot of steps, and I'm too lazy. And I realize, and I say those differently, that it would save me a lot of time in the long run, but we're not going to be working in the command line much longer. Once we have the assistant up and running, I'm going to update the action Docker image, and then I'm going to add the action server to our cluster and our Rasa X image. And the upshot of that is that we're going to be able to use a really nice, slick web UI to interact with our assistant from now on, and I can share it with everybody. I don't have a word for this. I remember someone saying on Wednesday that there's a term for that in Hindi that I don't remember what it was, but there's like a word. It's a crawfish or crayfish. At this point, I don't know which one I say. I don't have a word for that. So this is what the final assistant will be like. It's just a bunch of questions about ways that you would say things, and you fill it out. I call that a sub, I think. Subway sandwich. Not necessarily Subway, but the sandwich is a sub. That's an access road. And for all of these questions, there are multiple ways that people say them, which is why they are good dialectology questions, because they help to like distinguish between groups in the United States. And I call that a highway. I'm nervous. Yard sale, or a yard sard, which is a sort of a joke answer. If I entered in yard sard, it would probably be matched to yard sale, because we're using fuzzy matching to do the data validation. Rubbernecking. I'd say frosting. Lawyer boy. I know I have to say it every time, but I do. Kitty corner. Or catty corner. That'd also work. I think I'm more likely to say kitty corner than catty corner, though. Firefly. Could also say lightning bug. All right, we're getting there. So this quiz is 25 questions. The New York Times dialect quiz, which we're using similar data to, is I think like 29 questions. And the original dialect quiz is I think 125. So this is a subsection of all the questions. Verge. Enrique says, is there a dialect quiz for Hindi? I don't know. So India is one of the most linguistically diverse places on Earth. Not only do people speak a lot of different languages, those languages are from vastly different families. So I imagine a dialect quiz for, I don't know how much, I don't know a lot about sort of regional variation in Hindi. I know that there's a lot of regional variation in like what language you use at all. And I think that if you were trying to figure out where in India someone sounds like they're from, you probably just try to figure out, you know, what language they speak at home, would be my guess. I know a lot of y'all are from India, so feel free to chime in. Poo through. Fun fact about linguistics, and particularly one of the fields of linguistics that I studied, which is sound systems. This is a new error. Anyway, what I was going to say is that linguistics is a field, the structured study of systems of sounds within a language was invented in India. I want to say like around 3,000 years ago. So it's a very old study. Okay. Well, let's check our logs. What happened? Named. Data is not defined. Coded data. Self.encode answers. Data line 351. Interesting. Okay, so we get the answer none, which tells me that the classifier isn't running. Because if the classifier runs, we will get 3 states out. And the classifier has been running. We've been getting 3 states out. It's just always the same 3 states as if we hadn't filled out the quiz. So it was line 341, right? Encoded data, self data. Okay, and then encode answers. Okay, I think what the problem here is that we are not saying that this is specifically input data, perhaps. So I'm going to specify the argument name because explicit is better than implicit. Look at me being Pythonic. And did I input data? That's the problem right there. So it wasn't about me being explicit or anything. I don't think I need to specify get columns. As I remember, the way that we had it when we were doing it in a single line here is we were just getting dummies for the input data. The columns argument restricts the columns that are encoded, and we don't need that because we're using all of the columns because the person isn't telling us where they're from. Which is good. I don't want that data. That would be pretty sensitive data, especially with something with as high of accuracy as latitude and longitude. So, all right. This is actually a pretty good outcome, IMO, because it does tell us, because we were getting the error here, it does tell us that we are procking all the things that I think that we should be, and everything is happening in the order that I think it is happening, so my mental model doesn't seem to be that far off. And let's just quickly peek through the logs a little bit more and see if we see anything else. All right, so what's happening? Detect dialect, which is the, move me over here, there we go. So detect dialect is being run. There's a warning about unpickling, which I think we've gotten around, hopefully. And then there was an exception. What are we going through? So we are running the run function from the class, which is good. I don't know why we weren't getting that thing from the dispatcher that says like, hey, we're working on it, but we're not for some reason. It might be a scope thing because it's inside a function. Maybe it should be part of the return statement. I don't know. So that's happening, and then we're running the get top 3 canon function, and then, so this is the part that does the classifier, and then we are getting the encoding, and then we had the error in the encoding. So everything is working the way that I think it should be, I'm pretty sure. So let's save this and restart the action server and go through it again. Actually, let's, we can kill both of these and then restart. And I will shift things around again so y'all can see what I'm saying to the assistant. There we go. Okay, run Rasa actions. Please tell me everything that's happening. Oh, right. It's Rasa run actions. I don't know why that confused me for a second. I mean, I do know why. It's because I'm dyslexic. All right, that is up and running, and now we're going to use our assistant. And for this one, I'm not going to answer the questions in order. I'm just going to give them a random answer. All right. Ravi didn't show up today to know about Indian dialects. It could be a beautiful project. Yeah. I would love to see a dialect quiz for Hindi. I mean, presumably it would be in Hindi, and I know about Hindi, like a little bit. Like I know that it's got oh my gosh, what's that agreement pattern? So usually the oh wow. So rather than like a agent patient agreement pattern, it's got ergative something. Anyway, there's agreement with the indirect object that's interesting. Listen, I know some things about some languages. That's what my degree was in. Yeah, let's kick it off. Oh, what is that called? Ergative absolutive instead of nominative. Oh, this is gonna drive me nuts. So the reason that I can just answer A for a bunch of these and it'll give me some answers out is because, again, we're doing fuzzy matching, which means that it looks at the answers and picks the one that's closest, where the edit distance is the least close. So it'll pick sort of the thing that's closest to just the letter A out of the possible answers. Sorry, I just have to Hindi agreement. I am gonna look this up because it's gonna really oh no, these are all about the word agreement. Ergative. Ergativity. Yeah. It's ergative. Yes, okay. So, sorry, a little bit of a tangent. But in Hindi, sometimes a verb agrees with its object, not its subject. So, like an example from English, which is not an ergative absolutive language, would be if I said, English doesn't have a very rich verbal agreement system. We are he. I know that's a weird sentence. But if we were saying something like we are he, oh, are you freezing? You thinking about it? There we go. In a subject-object agreement pattern, are agrees with we, which is the subject of the sentence. In an ergative absolutive agreement pattern, you would say we is he, where the verb agrees with the object of the sentence instead. Weird. Okay. Just like a little glitch there. Anyway, that's something about Hindi, and it doesn't have it in all sentence structures, or like it's only one of the cases. It only happens sometimes, so it's interesting from a syntax perspective. Rachel, isn't this a good place for automated tests? Yes. Listen, you're right. Sometimes I just like to do things by hand, okay? Doesn't it take a long time, though? Listen. All right. So, good news, bad news. Good news, we fixed the error with referencing an object that doesn't exist. Bad news. These are the answers that we don't want. So we're still having the problem where our assistant is filling all of, or somewhere in the actions, somewhere in the actions script, we are filling all of the columns with zeros. All right, let's check the logs and see if anything happens. All right, so the oh, interesting. This should be probably mapped to other. I don't think A is one of our options for bug. So this is something we should look into for sure. That's not how that should be. All of these look pretty good though, other than that. Submitting, deactivating elicitation form. So the elicitation form is running okay, and the detect dialect runs okay, and something happens in that function, or that action, that is causing the problem. Wheel. Okay, let's fix the bug thing first. I think that's going to be fairly straightforward to fix. Yeah, and we're just not validating it. So let's just add it in here. And it was just bug, right? Database. Roly-poly. Bug. Okay, yeah, bug is the name of the slot. So we're just going to add one line here and do a little dynamic programming for our validation. So we are generating the functions to validate each of the slots individually at the runtime, just so I don't have to write a bunch of functions. There's maybe a more elegant way to do it, but this works. And as you can see, fairly extensible, so I'm not upset about it. Okay, so that's one potential problem, but that wouldn't cause the issue, I don't think, because that's just missing the validation for one of the slots and not all of them. I'm a little bit out of ideas. All right, it's time to break out the big guns, or use the Will that work? Do I need to use an f string here? Do I really want to introduce f strings as a dependency? Are f strings included in Python 2 by default? Let me check it into it really quick. Python f strings. Python 3, do I need to import them? Alright, I think I'm just gonna do this. think that should work. So I'm just going to go through and add a bunch of print statements and see what things look like at various points in the pipeline. So this is what formatted responses look like in run. And then, no, actually I wanted to print them out after we filled all of the slots. Boop. Okay. And then other things that I want to print. I want to print the encoded input data before I do the align. Okay, and then I want to do the encoded data after align. I think I have it in my clipboard. I will just paste it. Sure don't. Okay. First of all, fix your spacing or you will get an error. Ooh, okay. Encoded input data after align, and I think it's just called encoded data at this point. Okay, so I think that will answer the majority of my questions about what things look like. So let's run through it again. What time is it? 9:53. Okay, we still got some time. So save all this, pop this open, close these. Nope. Peace out. Goodbye. Rasa run actions. I think I just need the verbose one because I don't need all of the information about what the Rasa server is doing. The conversation part of this is running a-okay, not worried about it. All right. Enrique says, how do we know if tracker get slot is doing the right thing? Do you think that has something to do with it? That is a good question. It should show up in here because the first printout will if we're not getting the right slots, the first printout will show it up. Hopefully. I guess we'll find out. Yes, love to take quizzes. And now I'm just going to press A again. Oh, actually, let's use a different number. Let's use B. At this point, not going through and fixing the Windows localhost issue has probably cost me like 6 minutes of my life. That's okay. It's a nice little brain break, you know? Just like do some data entry. So once the form is filled out and the detect dialect action is triggered, we should be able to look at our server logs, the action server logs, and get some more information about what's actually happening at various points and pinpoint where our problem is. Or problems, it could be multiple things. Hard to say. Coffee. Wouldn't it be great if just printing things out fixed our problem magically? We don't have to do anything else. It won't. I know it won't. But we'll have more information, which is great. That's what I want right now. I just want to figure out what's happening at various points so I can figure out where we go off the rails. Enrique could be right. It could be the tracker store is not getting the right stuff from the slots. Although we haven't changed that code since the original. Well, I've updated Rasa though, so that could be it. So what I'm saying is we originally had our system up and running with a different classifier. And it worked, but the classifier gave nonsense answers. It was not very accurate or useful. So we went back and we rebuilt the classifier from scratch with a new set of the data, which was provided courtesy of Bert Fox. Thank you very much, Bert. And this classifier performs much better. So we are basically going back and slotting another and slotting another classifier into an existing pipeline. So let's check our things. Okay, so these are the formatted responses in run. I think, and as you can see, a lot of them start with B because I was just entering B's. So it looks like it is getting the information from the slots. You can see Q50 is other, Q28 is other, etc. And then encoding the input data before a line. That ain't right. Encoding data. Okay, so what I'm expecting here, but I'm not seeing. I see. Okay, so it looks like the problem is in the encoding, which is what we thought. Enrique says Kubernetes can wait a while. Yeah. Although, honestly, I would say the last, like, month or so, I have had way fewer problems with Kubernetes, and stuff is just, you know, it's starting to make a little bit of sense. I'm starting to be able to, like, figure stuff out. So what I expect to see at this point, the encoded data before the alignment, is I expect to see a very thin data set, or a very wide, narrow data set. So I expect to see a data frame with one row, where the columns look like Q50 underscore blah blah, Q28 underscore this. Let's take a little peek at the, do we have it open? Open editors. Let's take a little peek at the empty data structure. So I expect it to look like this. And a question that I have suddenly is, okay, no. My question was whether we'd lowercase everything here, and we had not. So this looks correct, right? I use lightning bug and data interchangeably. Let's find question 50. Should be in here somewhere. So I expect it to look like this, basically. What went wrong? So I think what's happening here is we had a series where the index is the question number. And what I want to do, this is a dumb way to do it. I feel like what I want to do is concatenate the index, the value of the series at that index, and then create a data frame of just that, and then fill it with ones. I think that might be the easiest way to do this. And then do the alignment. So it's clear to me now why we're getting all zeros. And the reason we're getting all zeros is because we have these, basically we're getting the second half of the column name. And so when we go to do the left join, it looks for the column name. I use lightning bug and firefly interchangeably. And that should have a question in front of it. Let's see if I can find it. It should be Q65 underscore I use lightning bug and firefly interchangeably, instead of just I use lightning bug and firefly interchangeably. Yeah. Enrique says Vincent in some of his videos uses latest message, I think. Does it make sense? I think we're getting the slots. We're getting the correct information from the tracker. The problem is in how we are manipulating that information and putting it into data structures after that. And the way that we're putting it into data structures doesn't match the specific format that our classifier is looking for. So just an answer to Enrique's question. So we don't need to do the get last message. We don't need to use that because we're using a form to fill all of our slots. I mean, I guess we could use we could use it somewhere in this project, but right now I don't think it's super relevant to the particular problem that we are facing. So, this was helpful. Love me a print statement. Yeah, and as you can see, this is just So what we should get after the alignment is, we get 172 columns, which is the correct number of columns. We should be getting 2 rows, and instead we're getting a separate row for every question, and all of those rows are full of zeros because we don't have the right column names. So this was helpful. This was very helpful. So the input data, yes, we need to do some manipulation to the input data. We need to convert it to a data frame. It cannot stay a series. I think that's the thing. Niels Webb says, I'm tuning in a bit late. What are you classifying? We are taking in answers to a dialect quiz. So people will say how they say various things, like what do you call a little bug that lives under rocks and rolls up into a little ball and is actually a crustacean. And, sorry, I just want to put all my coffee into one mug. And what we have discovered is that our data formats are not as they were expected. So is there a quick way to convert a panda series with an index into a data frame? Pandas convert series with index to data frame. I'm just searching how to do this. Convert panda series to data frame. That's not quite what I'm looking for. Predict using the data frame construct. There are lots of ways to construct a data frame. See the no, so this is not what I want. So I have a series with a named index, and I want to convert it into a data frame where the index is the column name. So I want to make it, I want to transpose it. Maybe that'll be the good term that gives me the answer I want. Pandas transpose named transpose name series to data frame. Find out if this works. Oh, panda series to data frames using series indices as columns. That's what I'm looking for. Yes, all right, this is exactly what I have. That's what I want it to look like. How'd you do it? Yeah. All right, okay, so it looks like I can just do, oh, the function's called transpose. All right, well, that was easy. So I think we can, let's find out. I think we can just transpose our input data. So the formatted response looked fine. It looked the way that I wanted it to look. So here's our formatted responses. You can see that we have the question, number, and then the answer to that question. Question number, answer to the question. I'm just going to quickly check that question 66 is in fact crawdad. Was it 66, right? All right, there shouldn't be an underscore there. Question 66. Crawdad, yeah, excellent, fantastic. As I expected and wanted it to look like. Okay, so then we should be able to just transpose this to create a data set where these are the columns, a data frame rather, where these are the columns and this is the information in the column, and then things should work as we expect. Gosh, I hope so. That would be great, huh? Okay, so we're not going to do that in run. We're going to do that in encode answers. And then, so we're going to take the input data, transpose input data. So it was input underscore data is what we called it. Nope, lowercase. And then data frame, and then this is the series. Input data is a series. And then transpose like so. Let's give it a shot. Actually, first I'm going to add in another print statement. Not where that goes. Not even a little bit. Please don't remove the bit that I think is going to fix the classifier. Please let's remove the bit that's just me debugging things. What should I call this so that it is helpful for me? Transposed input data. I'm just going to add a new line just to make it a little bit easier for me to read. All right, once more. Wouldn't it be great to end today on a high note where I actually fix this and then we can talk to our assistant? I mean, I've been able to talk to it because it's been running locally, but once it's up on Rasa X and the action server is running, I can share it with everybody and y'all can actually use it, which I think will be pretty fun. All right, once more. Rasa run the action server. This is where all of our code will run. Well, all of the code that's not having the conversation. The rest of the code that's having the conversation runs in the Rasa server, which is launched when we use the Rasa shell command. Squeak. Howdy. Ooh, I want this to work. If this doesn't work, we're going to have to futz around with pandas some more, which I'd prefer not to, honestly. Yep. Very happy to have my answers be shown on stream. And last time we went for B answers. This time we're just going to go through and do C a bunch. I mention this every time, but this sort of like hang time with each of the questions is because I'm using Windows and localhost. Rachel, wouldn't it at this point have taken less time to fix it than it would have to explain every time why it's a little bit slow? Hush. Enrique says, last attempt today. If it works, it'll be the last attempt. If it fails in a way that the information that I learn is helpful, I might give it one more because I want to share my assistant with you guys. I want everybody to be able to talk to it. I want to share it with Bert, who very kindly shared the data with me. Because I think it would be a fun teaching tool as well. Oh, all right. And we did find another little bug that I didn't know was there, which was the fact that we didn't actually validate the answer for, it's waiting for me. We didn't actually validate the answer for roly-polies or pill bugs or potato bugs or sow bugs or wood louse or whatever you call them. They got lots of names. Please work. Please work. Be great if you worked. I'm getting there. I think we have maybe one more after this. Oh, no. All right. All right, let's find out why. If I didn't turn on logging, I swear to God. Oh, okay. So again, this looks good. We've got everything validated. Those are answers that I'm looking for. Name data frame is not defined. Yeah. Yeah, I see how that could be, because I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be pd.dataframe because we imported pandas as pd. Pretty sure. All right. Right? Yeah, okay. Well, noted. Yes, sorry, I was just thinking about it. Should that actually be like a data frame that we're calling there? And no, that doesn't make sense. It's a method for converting something into a data frame. So I think the syntax is right. I think I just didn't specify the file path. How are you, Patel? I'm doing okay. Enrique says, not very active audience today. It's Friday. I know it's really hot in Europe right now, so I'm assuming people are just sort of lying down in front of fans with a cool beverage. I was just saying iced tea, probably not an iced tea. I think that's more of an American thing. God, I haven't had good sweet tea in years. Anyway, I could make it myself. I know this, but that's a dangerous dangerous road to go down. All right, let's go one more time, because I think we got useful information, so I'm willing to give it another shot. Patel says, what age did you start coding at? That's a good question. I think the first time I ever took a programming class was maybe, I think there was like a, here, let me start the action server so I can answer this while I am typing in the same letter 18 times. Rasa actions, and I do want the kind of verbose one. And then once that's up, fantastic. Rasa shell. So I think I took like an HTML like after school elective thing when I was maybe in elementary school, but I didn't like do much with it. Like I made a web page and I think I made it pink and like I made the font bigger. So we're just gonna start this conversation. And then in high school, I took a coding course in visualbasic.net that was done remotely because we didn't have, I went to a pretty small rural high school and we didn't really have a lot of faculty that could teach like advanced mathematics or programming or anything like that. I also took AP statistics virtually, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Yes, go ahead. I'm not going to do this. And in college, so like I sort of like learned about it, but it was very frustrating, and I don't think I really internalized a lot of the information. And it was also like mostly like UI design, which is not something that I find particularly appealing. And then in college, I took sort of the intro computer science courses. I think I took maybe 2 of them. I didn't like major or minor in computer science by any stretch of the imagination. I actually have a double major in English literature and linguistics. And I did a tiny bit of R in college as well, and I didn't really understand it. I was just sort of like following along from a book. And the statistics courses that I took in college were more focused on psychology, and I think we used SPSS, which is not a little bit more point and clicky. It wasn't really statistical computing. I mean, it was statistical computing, but it wasn't really statistical programming. And then in grad school, I got a lot more serious about learning to code and doing more things. So I took some R courses. I took a bunch of statistics courses where they just sort of assumed that you knew R. A lot of sort of simulation and statistical modeling and some causal modeling, some Bayesian stuff. And I also did a little bit of MATLAB for various acoustic stuff. I took a course in MATLAB. I'm not a huge fan of MATLAB, I would say. Not my favorite. It's also closed source, which is not ideal for me. So I would say it was not until I was in my 20s that I really started to program routinely, and I am 30 now, so less than 10 years that I've been doing programming, you know, more than once a year, I guess. Hopefully that was helpful. Something vaguely interesting to talk about while I was filling this out. Alrighty. What's the problem now? Local variable. Encoded input data referenced before assignment. Okay. Where did I do that? Line 330. Oh no. Oh no, it was in one of my print statements? Oh, well, now I just feel silly. Okay. Let's make sure I did that. Also, I feel like that should have given me an error. Okay. Input data. Yes. Encoded input data, encoded input data. Yes. Well, and then encoded data. That happens after assignment. Okay. Once more. This is a great way to find bugs. It's not. It's so slow. But it's also kind of, I don't know, I think it's like a little bit chill and relaxing. Yes, I know this would be, if I had an end-to-end test, this would be so much faster. But you know what? I have no good reason that I'm not using them. Yeah, I'll start Rasa run actions. A little verbose. Make sure that's happening. Excellent. And now let's kick it off with Rasa shell, not Rasa hell. That wouldn't work. Hi. Some warnings about deprecation. That's okay. Yes, happy to have my things. ABCD. I think I'm on E now, so I'm just going to go through and do E. How long does it take to learn Rasa from basics? I'd say it's pretty straightforward. So the assistant creation part and like creating stories and having your assistant say new things and being able to handle different types of input or text input, that's really all just editing text files. So it's not really code. There's like a format that it needs to follow. But we believe in sensible defaults and things that will work, you know, pretty well pretty quickly. Using pre-trained models, perhaps obviously, maybe that's not obvious, it's going to be a little bit easier with English just because there are more larger pre-trained models that work with English than with other languages. But I would say that you could create, that's okay, it'll be able to handle empty input. I would say you'd be able to create an assistant that does like new things within a couple hours. The sort of thing that I'm doing here, where the assistant is basically a front end for a machine learning application, takes a bit more time in my case, in particular, because the you know, the data science and machine learning engineering process just sort of takes a while. I would say all told, the assistant that I've been working on right now, I really only work on it on stream. So if I'd been working on this full time as part of my job, I think it would probably take me about 2 weeks. And this is really the first very complex assistant I built with Rasa. I built a lot of ones that are like small demos and like, you know, fun little side projects that answer some questions and sort of thing. So I would say up and running fairly quickly. Deployment in DevOps, obviously going to be as, you know, time consuming as your particular deployment environment requires. And then if you really need more complex things, we want the library to be very extensible. So to completely master Rasa, I would say it's changing very rapidly. So it would take some time to keep caught up on things. But just to get started and start your first assistant pretty quick. Yeah, Patel says, are you really interested in Rasa? Well, I do work there. I am, yeah. I think it's, when I was first approached as maybe working there, I wasn't actually looking for a job at the time. but I started looking into the technology and playing around with it, and I found that every time I was like, oh, I wish it could do X, it could do X. Like, it had already been implemented, and it was pretty straightforward and intuitive to use, and it really followed a lot of sort of the there's like a definite user-centered ethos to Rasa and the way that the development process works with the Rasa assistant, where you are working with data, you're not manipulating it, but you're annotating it over time and really doing human in the loop learning and continuous updates, and you know, you don't just sort of create an enormous system of rules and then shove it out into the world, and it takes a really long time to update. And I found that very appealing as an engineer and a developer. So yeah. Patel says, I made one chat with Rasa. It was a very amazing experience. Fantastic. I love to hear that. And as you may have noticed, I'm very delighted. We have a result that is not the same 3 states we've been seeing the whole dang time. I think it works, y'all. All right, let's check our log just to make sure. Alrighty. So we have, this is what we're getting from our slots. As you can see, a lot of these are other because the character I was using was E, and other has an E in it. And then there's a warning about unpickling. And then we have, this is the data structure that I wanted. So the question name is the column, and then the answer that the person gave is the contents of that column. So it's very wide. And then when we aligned it, it has 172 columns, and they're not all empty. So I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna delete all my print statements. I think we're good to go. I think that's it. I think it's ready for the prime time. I'm gonna see if I can upload it to Docker real quick, and then I think next Wednesday is gonna be the launch, which means that I'll be able to share a link, and you will all be able to use the assistant, and it will work. It'll do the whole quiz. Right, let's see. Do I have any other to-dos in here? Validate the bug spot. I did that. Oh, I knew it was a problem, and I still didn't do it. Ooh, whoopsie doopsie. Oh, whoops. And that's all my to-dos in the action server. It works. I'm delighted. Woo! Woo! I'm sharing it with all my linguist friends, and they can use it with their students, and it'll be a fun time for everybody, hopefully. And then we'll have actual conversations, and so like the whole time so far we've been prototyping. And I mentioned a little bit that we have this ethos of, you know, CI/CD, constantly improving. We call it conversational-driven development. So once the assistant is actually being used by people, I'm starting with sort of like test users, so people who know that it's in, you know, alpha, will be able to go through, annotate those conversations, see where there are errors, correct them, see what other sorts of things people want the assistant to be able to do, maybe edit some of the responses that the assistant has so that they're a little bit clearer for folks. And yeah, we'll be able to make it better and better over time. I'm really excited. Harshit says, I just joined. Can you give a quick recap? Welcome. We're actually wrapping up for the day, but I'd say the quick recap is it works. So we're building an assistant that it creates a dialect quiz and then tells you where in the US people use words, most like you use words based on the get rid of that, that is good. Based on your answers to the quiz, and I think we're good. Right there, you don't do the classifier. I don't think that's how you spell classifier. There we go. Placeholder. Get dialect classification. It's not a placeholder anymore. It do work. Oh, fantastic. All right, and let's just, as a one final thing, because I did say that I was going to do it, and close that and that, let's upload it to Docker real quick. Not broken. Great, so this is going to be on Docker Hub. What we can do next Wednesday is we'll be able to, because we have our Rasa X assistant loaded, our assistant loaded in Rasa X, but right now it's just the conversations having part and not the, I'm ignoring that security warning, gosh, I hope that don't apply to me. So we have just the conversation having part. Now we're going to have the part that actually does the quiz and the machine learning and asks all your questions. And we'll be able to add it to our Kubernetes cluster, and it will work, and you'll be able to use it. Hopefully, we'll find out. Fabulous. All right, thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. I think it's a good high note to end live streaming on today. Have a great Friday, and we will be back with live streaming on Wednesday. We'll have more live coding next Thursday. We'll continue reading the paper, Vincent and Maddie and me, Lipstick on a Pig, which talks about word embedding, debiasing, and some of the problems with current techniques. Friday, more live coding. And this Monday, Monday the 17th, sorry, I had to think about it. I've got a new NLP for developers, which are little short form videos, and this one's going to be on GPT-3, which I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about, so hopefully I'll be able to answer some of those. All right. Thanks so much for joining. I had fun today because things worked, and I will see you.